Brothers, the phrase fake news is a meme at this point, but it does point to something real, something tangible, something that we can see in real time. In often cases, it's, omitting something, or, the way that they frame it is dishonest. When you hear the word youths shoot, for example, things like that, you can tell that they are trying to omit something because they don't want you to know. We know when they say youths, they mean black people. Because if it were white people, they would say that the perpetrator is white. That's just one example of the way that the media intentionally tries to frame things in a certain narrative and worldview. They omit certain facts, they alter and change and distort certain facts, and that is what is referred to as fake news. However, there is another level to it where they will deceptively edit interviews or speeches in order to come out with a narrative that is just intentionally dishonest to make a narrative. And so that is super fake news. Now, it all falls under the same umbrella where the media is being deceptive and dishonest, but sometimes they feel a little too brazen. They feel a little too comfortable, and that's the situation that the BBC finds itself in because they deceptively edited a Trump speech on January 6th to make it seem like he was inciting people to go down to the Capitol and attack members of the government, which is not what the speech was. And in fact, the BBC is reporting on the BBC and their fuck up. Now, in this video, I want to play this clip because it's very interesting. They are definitely trying to downplay this. They're trying to downplay the scope. They use the words like it was an error. This was not an error. This was not a mistake. This was a deliberate choice. They did this deliberately. You don't accidentally take clips from a speech 54 minutes apart and put them side by side. That's not what an error is. That's not what a mistake is. But they're going to try to frame it in that way. And the reason we're talking about this, not only is it because it's such a colossal fuck up, but there have been people at the BBC, at the upper echelon, that have resigned as a result of this, while not admitting they did anything wrong. Not really. This was an error. Yeah, we made a mistake. Yeah, you didn't make a mistake. You did not make a mistake. By saying that you made a mistake, you are saying, oh, well, this was just like, oops, this happened to us. No, you deliberately and intentionally tried to deceive the audience, and now you're being held to account for your own deliberate, malicious, mendacious, audacious behavior. You're being held to account. The audacity of these people that think that, we can do what we want because we're the BBC, eh? The most trusted name in news. My ass. But anyway, let's give this a watch, and this will be a pretty good synopsis of the situation. And I wanted to choose the BBC to cover on this because I think it's hilarious that they have to cover up their own scandal.
The BBC has been accused of misleading or of a misleading edit of Donald Trump's 6th of January speech 2 years before the panorama sequence that saw the resignation of the Director General. The clip of his speech, first run on Newsnight in 2022, is reported by the Telegraph newspaper. Well, I'm joined now by our culture correspondent, Lisa Mizimba. Lisa, what more do we know?
Well, people might remember the issue with the panorama was an edit where two separate pieces of the speech by Donald Trump were put together. One where he referred to going down to the Capitol, then a later bit from 54 minutes later in the speech where he referred to fighting like hell. And these were put together in a way that the BBC has since acknowledged was misleading about how his words were being used. It led to the resignation of two senior figures. The BBC chair, Samir Shah, has said that, yes, on reflection, it was an error. Now, this happened on Newsnight a few years before. A similar edit was made with the same speech and the same sections of the speech, not identical, but similar.
Right. So what he's saying here is that this is not the first time that they've done this. the BBC has done this before. And they felt brazen doing it again because they were not held to account. So, Donald Trump is going to hold them to account because Donald Trump has rejected their so-called apology and he is suing them for $1 billion.
Where yet again, Donald Trump talked in the first part about going down to the Capitol and in the second part, fighting like hell. And these two bits were put together in a similar way to Panorama. This is different, though, to Panorama in a couple of ways. One, it was broadcast on Newsnight. Then immediately afterwards, there was an interview with a gentleman called Mick Mulvaney, who's a former chief of staff to President Trump, and he immediately said, look, you've spliced two different bits of the speech together in a misleading way. So it was flagged up immediately after it was broadcast by a live interviewee on Newsnight. Secondly, this was brought to the attention of The Telegraph, who've been reporting this evening, by a BBC whistleblower, a former graphic designer. And he says the following morning, there was an editorial meeting looking at the previous night's programme. He said, one producer said, how did that clip of Trump go out? How did that happen? Or words to that effect. And another editorial figure, he said, just brushed it off. So again, the allegation being reported by The Telegraph is that a whistleblower has told them that it was again raised and brought to people's attention, but brushed off by an editorial figure.
And what's the BBC's response been?
We haven't had a response from the BBC at the moment.
You are the BBC! Guys, welcome to BBC News. We haven't got a word about what the BBC has said. Are you kidding me? It's so ridiculous. You are the BBC. You are the British Broadcasting Network. And the thing is, this makes you look so bad, but this is what Trump derangement syndrome does. You have these people that believe that the narrative is more important than the truth. These people think the average British citizen, the average American citizen is stupid and they need to be molded. They need to be told what the right thing to think is instead of just presenting the truth. So what do? They put out this malicious edit that is intentionally dishonest. This wasn't like an error. Because how do you get 54 minutes apart? Oh, oops, we just spliced these two things together. No, it was made to seem like this was a continuation of his thought. That we're going to go down to the Capitol and we're going to go and we're going to attack them. But I wanted to play part of this because I wanted to show you the actual clip in question so that there's no ambiguity. So that nobody could say, well, I don't really know. How could you make this statement? Like, I don't want anyone thinking that there's any wiggle room on this. So I'm going to play the actual clip. And you can make the determination for yourself. I'm going to trust your intelligence and your judgment way more than the BBC ever did. So here you go.
Footage. Take a listen to this.
We're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
OK, now that's gone out. Whilst on air, a former Donald Trump advisor who became a critic of Donald Trump, Mick Mulvaney, a guy I've interviewed many times.
I apologize. That was not actually the correct clip in question. I guess I got bamboozled. No, that's not the juxtaposition. The juxtaposition is that's not the right clip. Well, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I got bamboozled.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
These clips showing the edited and original versions of a Trump speech have...
Yeah, so that's the clip in question. So I want to play it one more time just so you get the full the breadth of this situation.
Down to the Capitol. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
These clips showing the edited and original versions of a Trump speech have caused a major crisis at the BBC. The BBC's director...
By the way, the people that did that engaged in that, understand, people say that Trump is a dictator. Trump is not a dictator. I would have our Department of Justice seek to extradite those people, and I would have them tried in the United States, because I mean that is an attack on the United States. That is an attack on the President of the United States. That is not just a simple oopsie. You're talking about the leader, or rather, in this case, it was the leader of a foreign country that was currently going through a rigged election, a stolen election. There's no question about that. The 2020 election was not the most secure election in history. It just wasn't. I think anyone who's being honest knows that there was a lot of underhanded tactics by the Democrats, with mass mail-out voting and a bunch of other stuff, where we looked at the voting for 2020. And you look at how many Democrats were voting, and then suddenly, miraculously, in 2024, it goes, relatively back to normal a little bit, huh? Crazy. Yeah, that's a conversation for a different time. But in 2024, all of the fake ballots, the millions of them, are just gone. They're just gone. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and they came out to vote for Biden, and then they just disappeared, and they're not going to vote again. Yeah, right. Anyway, the point is that Donald Trump had to deal with, so many different things from the Democrats all happening at once. But this is a foreign leader that is going through a situation where they're trying to figure out this stolen election, and a foreign country, a supposed ally, is running this sort of hit piece propaganda. And it's unacceptable. I think that you should charge them or increase the tariffs on the UK. Punish them for this. This is a so-called ally, and this is what they were running. This is not an ally. This is enemy propaganda. Pure and simple. And the resignation of these people need to be in jail. You mean to tell me that you can be arrested for thought offenses as it relates to migrants, but if you make a false story from the BBC about the President of the United States, a so-called ally, you get off scot-free? No, those people should be in jail for the rest of their lives. Those people are the enemies of civilization. Find out who was complicit in that. All the people that were complicit in that. Arrest them all. I don't know. That would be my go-to. That would be my instinct. Because the BBC is filled with roaches. And it's unacceptable what they've done here. And they should be punished for it. So, anyway, Trump's suing them for $1 billion. Do I think he's going to get $1 billion? No, but it is very interesting. This is one of the most significant failures and betrayals from the UK to the US in a long time. This is shocking. Anyway, brothers, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for supporting the channel, and I'll see you next time.